Hello and welcome to Ultra TV, the cinematic Mun to Ultra Magazine's Row. We're here today in the beautiful village of Mungrinsdale, I think I've said that probably incorrectly, to interview Kim Collison, who recently completed the Munro Record. I'm not going to talk too much about that because Kim's right here and he'll tell us all the gory details about the highs and the lows of running continuously for 24 hours over 33 Cairngorm peaks. Right, Kim, thanks ever so much for agreeing to see us today. I really appreciate it. I suppose the first question has to be, how are you? How's your recovery going?
I'm really good and really obviously big smile on my face from the achievement I've just done. I've got the usual ultra wears and tears of sore knees, tired muscles, general whole body fatigue and tiredness.
Yeah.
Trying to catch up on missing the night's sleep and just working so hard for 24 hours. I find that it's more my chest and lungs that take a bit longer to recover.
Yeah.
But I'm now moving freely and thinking what's next type already.
Okay, well that was going to be one of my questions, so let's kind of segue into that. Have you got any idea of where you're going to go next?
Yeah, I mean, it's been so long since I've raced. I think I haven't raced since COVID happened. I've just really focused on the big challenges and records. So I'm actually going to head to Wales for the Dragon's Back race in 8 weeks' time.
Brilliant, I'll see you there.
Brilliant.
Yeah, okay, I'll probably be at the different end of the field to you though, Kim. Right, marvellous. So Dragon's Back, and you're looking at getting the pointy end of that field. Are you hoping for a win? What's the goal for that?
To race hard. I know I've got this in my body, so the first priority is recovery, and then see where I am in a couple of weeks' time, and then I won't know until I'm on the start line how competitive I will be. I'm sure I'll be fairly close to the front.
Sure you will be. And interesting that with the extra kind of day 6, isn't it? So new day 4, day 5 and day 6, so that'll be a kind of bit of a leveler for people, I guess. So
yeah, I think that probably was part of the draw of excitement of bringing me to that race, that it kind of completes all the way down to Cardiff, getting a full, I think building that full traverse of the Brecon Beacons in kind of adds to that layer of challenge and excitement.
Yeah.
That race, I mean, it was already massive and big, but now 6 days. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to that journey.
Yeah. The Dragon's Back long course as opposed to the
long
previous,
course.
as opposed to the previous short course. So, how did you get into running then, Kim? What's your pedigree?
I guess my running history goes back to junior school days. Following my dad, I think my dad did the London Marathon a couple of times, and going to London, watching him, following him, and then just started running myself. Found I was actually really quite good. I think as a kid I always played a lot outside and I was always active. So and I enjoyed just that running from a young age.
Yeah.
And then I found I was quite good at school cross-country sort of level, not particularly good at county level, but okay. So that, I developed that joy of running, and then that kind of combined with scouts and where we were always going to the mountains and navigation and hiking, and combined to long days out. So I developed that sense of endurance and in the mountains at an early age. But then I had a good 7 years probably of not really running properly or training until I landed back in the Lake District in late 2008, and that's when I probably started training and running in the hills and the mountains properly. It's become a runner.
Okay, and that's where you kind of graduated into the bigger challenges. I mean, when did you realise you had a talent for breaking records? Because I mean, we're kind of talking about pedigree, but let me see if I've got them all right. So Paddy Buckley,
yeah,
round record.
Yeah.
Obviously the Munro's record, which you've just done.
Yeah.
Lakeland 24 record, which was 74?
78.
78.
Peaks.
Sorry, I sold you short on 4.
Yeah.
78 peaks in 23.
4 hours. Or 23:45.
23:45. Okay, you've got the record for the winter Bob Graham.
Yep. 15 hours 47 minutes.
15 hours 47 minutes. Okay, so what else have I missed?
Yeah, I mean that's
Those are the headlines?
They're the headline
Right.
record rounds.
Okay, so when did you realise that you were at that level and you could really push it for that length of time? Because we're not just talking kind of getting around 100 miles here. We're talking around getting around 100 miles with a lot of vertical, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess on the ultra scene, becoming competitive would have been the 2014 with the Lakeland 50, and when it was then British Championship race, and with the hope of GB selection,
right?
And then when I won that race, it kind of went, okay, I'm on a competitive scale here. I think the year before, in 2013, I'd gone to CCC, set off like a fell race up the first hill. I think I was end up in probably about 4th place at the top of the first hill, thinking, wow. Clearly I hadn't run many ultras before on that sort of scale, and faded. So I think I was 11th. So those two combined kind of made me realise, I was really quite a competitive runner in the ultra world. Not quite top elite, but a good sub elite runner
At the sharp end. Yeah.
the sharp end. But then you hold these records in high esteem, because they'd lasted a long time. That you idolise them, so you kind of put them out of not in my range or not in my box until I guess the winter Bob Graham was like a trigger in my mind. Actually, I just got to. What Jim had done, 18 hours, felt achievable.
Yeah.
You have a good run on the good conditions. I thought, I've got that talent to potentially challenge that. And then when I actually did it and outran that quite massively and ran 15:47, and still felt actually there was areas in that round that I could have improved. It kind of gives you that confidence of where you are. So then you start to think, okay, where do I go? What can I do?
Yeah.
What other places are potential?
And did you set about with a tick list? Did you kind of have all these things thinking, right, okay, so I've done the Bob, I'm going to go with Paddy. Did you have it in your mind? Was it that kind of structured, or was it a bit more kind of ad hoc than that?
No, because after the winter I thought, right, I haven't done the Ramsey, I haven't done the Paddy. They look like 2 records that could be possible at that particular time, because I think it was held by Jasmine when I was thinking about it for the Ramsey, and then the Paddy was Damon's, but it looks like he'd done it mostly self-supported and looked achievable.
Yeah.
So pre-COVID arriving in 2020, I was planning to do those 2 events and then run UTMB as my sort of goal for 2020.
Wow.
And I thought, right, let's. So I'd already set up my year with those as focuses, which in a way was kind of a good thing when COVID hit, because I wasn't training for necessarily a specific event. I was training for a big adventure round.
Yeah.
And living here, I could still keep training pretty hard on hills and mountains and be specific. I was still holding on for a Paddy as my objective, but as time went on, it was becoming clear that actually maybe I could target something a bit closer to home.
Yeah.
And then it was a case of Adam was going to have another attempt at the 24-hour record, and I was going to help support him. And unfortunately, it didn't come off for him again, which kind of went, I'm in really good shape here. maybe it's my turn to have a go at this Mark Hartel record that's been held up, and maybe I can add that extra peak.
So the door was left open for you almost to have a go.
I was fit, I was ready for a round, I was, raring at the bit. So it was like, right, there's no fear, and go for it.
So that was almost, I mean, it seems to me that was almost a bit opportunistic in terms of you were looking at another round and then that kind of, let's say, the door opened for you. In terms of preparation for these big events, though, I mean, there are a couple of things that spring immediately to mind. Obviously, you're a coach, so you know how to physically prepare. But talk us through, what does training look like? How do you work out your nutrition? Logistically, how do you plan these events? Because with all due respect, right, to keep up with you across the hills, you're going to need to source some pretty quick runners to run each leg with you. So where do you find them from? And how do you get all the things in place? Because it must be like a military operation to try and get people addition chat.
Yeah, that's probably a little bit of my weakness, is the logistical side of planning. So what I do have to think about the team is very important, of who goes where, because as you say, me, fresh legs, tapered, with the motivation of the record, the speed that you go off at the start is a strong fell race pace, for a long AL. Maybe just a step below, but for most, they can't run that level for that long. You're talking their first legs are 4-hour kind of legs, so you've got to have a good endurance and be able to hold a high pace. So I think the Lakes 24, I got George Foster and Martin Mikkelsen Barron. So George went on to win.
No slouches, are there?
No slouches. And then that tapered down to at a various stage. You do slow down, and you are slower than most people that have trained in the mountains. So the last few legs, I look for more people that know me or can give me that push, or that support, that encouragement, that I know with the navigation. Because at that time I'm switching off and just focusing on the effort level in the movement, and want to just trust them with getting me from A to B. So carefully planning who and where, but then there's also an element of all the 3 big rounds that I've recently done. I've had a lot of different people from different areas, and some that I've never met before, and you go, okay, but they're local and they know the area and are really keen, and that's been a really fun part of that jigsaw and puzzle.
Right.
On a training aspect, I'm kind of, over years I've built up a huge aerobic fitness and base, so it's now trying for me to almost block train, in the sense of what do I work on specifically or focus on in a particular time of year. So early on in the year I was really focusing on really short hill intervals and really trying to push my VO2 max end up again, because often I end up neglecting that quite a lot. But you've still got to have that speed and that top capacity to bring the floor up to. And then pre-paddy, there was a lot more threshold type work and shorter long intervals. Post Paddy Buckley, thinking okay, that was a 16-hour effort and I'm now aiming for a 24. I've kind of developed that threshold as much as I probably want to. I don't need that much speed anymore. I need to focus more on the sustained endurance aspects. So I kind of focused on some longer days out to keep the specificity of the ups and downs, for the eccentric, the downhill elements and the hiking elements, but then put in the sustained long duration uphill efforts, like from valley to mountain top at a sustained tempo, rather than breaking it down into race pace
And do you use zones for your training? Or are you just on your heart rate? I mean, your heart rate monitor? Are you zoning out, or are you just doing an 80-20 split? I mean, how does that work for you? What do you advocate in terms of an approach?
I've kind of shifted more towards a feel-based approach, but hanging it clearly off the your thresholds, in the sense of where is your easy effort. You know, what is your aerobic threshold, where you start to transition to burning more carbohydrates than fat, and then what is that, you know, sustained hour effort intensity, and and trying to gauge what is my effort compared to those points. Yeah. Using your breathing and feel is kind of key for those. For me, you know, when I'm doing short intervals, my body tells me how hard I'm running, and it's a lot quicker than the heart rate at that end.
Yeah.
In my earlier years of development, I did use heart rate quite extensively to, you know, make sure that I was running and getting an understanding of what feel was like, and that's what is an endurance zone. However, now that my aerobic capacity is really well developed, I can feel, I know that this is a really low heart rate. I mean, I'm below the 80. I mean, definitely in the 80%. You know, and then I know when I really got to push it. Actually, the body's a pretty good indicator of what effort level it is.
So I'm thinking about actually when you're on the runs. Okay, so the question I ask myself when I see the achievements that you do, and other your compatriots at the top end of the field, is, are you pushing all the time? I mean, and I know it sounds like a silly question, or do you look at kind of pieces of the route and think, do you know what, actually I'm going to throttle back to, I'm going to 60%. Is it full on effort for 24 hours, 23 hours, 48 minutes? I mean, is it max? I mean, how do you work through the kind of the maintenance of your energy, working through, maintaining a consistent level?
Yeah, I think the success of why I've had success is that I now understand what I can sustain, what I can push, right, what the throttle is, and I'm not afraid, or haven't been afraid, to push from the off. When I say push from the off, it's clearly not going to be a 60-minute race pace effort from the off, because that is just not sustainable.
Yeah.
But it's what effort can I push that I know after 3-4 hours that I'm going to be tired, I'm going to be fatigued, but then can click into that sustainable hard pushing.
Yeah.
Where I'm hiking up the hill at a set, you almost, when you get so far into an ultra, it is power hiking up the hill.
Yeah.
And if you can click into that same sustainable hour after hour, your average pace then is going to be pretty much similar up each hill.
Right.
The key then is for me is trying to maintain the downhill element throughout the course of the thing. So trying to hold back and be fluid and efficient on the downhills, and not go at full bore.
Yeah.
So that that then your muscles tighten, and I've experienced that myself, and on UTMB often, or a couple of times, or those races where I've gone too hard down the nice angled hills early, my quads are wrecks and my gait's gone, and you've not got any fluidity downhill.
Yeah, you kind of quads blow up like Christmas hams, don't they? Yeah.
Yeah. So the key thing I'm thinking about early on is maintaining good speed, but not blowing those, so that you even after 5, 6, 7, 8, 24 hours, I'm still able to see a slope and maintain a good fluid motion.
Yeah.
Obviously it becomes more of a shuffle nature as time progresses, but that's the nature of I'm just trying to reduce that impact.
Okay.
But I'm always pushing. After a certain time, I'm always challenging my body to push.
Yeah, I should imagine there's no taking the foot off the gas totally. You've got a target. You've got you know where you want to be from a timeline point of view, and that's you've got to kind of keep working towards that. One of the things I'm becoming a bit fixated about when I'm talking to athletes, and I must apologise for this, is nutrition. I'm amazed at kind of when you look at other sports, and we've got the Olympics coming up, and you look at kind of the structure that goes into the athletic kind of nutrition, and God only knows what how they kind of calculate all the scientific blends of carbohydrates and proteins and fats and all the rest of it. And then when I talk to athletes that, in my opinion, humble opinion, do considerably more in terms of putting stresses on their body, or certainly different stresses on their body, running over 33 Munros and 78 Lakeland Peaks and stuff. And the approach to nutrition, to be fair, doesn't seem as structured generally. So the question to you, I suppose, is: do you have a structured approach to the food you're taking in? Is it do you look at calories per hour? Some people reckon that calories are a bit overrated anyway, and it's all around kind of what you eat when you're hungry. Just talk us through how that looks for you.
No, a little bit of both, in a sense. On a daily basis, I'm not trying to be too focused and structured on what I eat. I try and eat a pretty healthy, balanced lot of fruit and veg, and try and make sure I'm getting enough protein in 3 or 4 times a day. I'm mostly vegetarian, and I guess on a blue moon I will eat a piece of meat. Often I've cut out a lot of dairy as well, so generally quite a balanced, healthy diet, but not trying to get too into the weeds of the detail, because I think I perhaps do it for a couple of weeks, a year, where I count and manage and go, okay, what am I actually doing? Does this fit the general guidelines? Yeah. And then it just becomes too much, and there's a enjoyment element for me.
Okay.
I think that's just a bit about my personality. I think their mindset is very military and detailed and precision, whereas if I'm getting the holistics right, the key I am focusing on is that I am getting enough carbohydrate, that I am feeding the training that I do. So I do believe in making sure that I've got a good carbo loading.
So is your nutrition strategy, now I don't want to put words in your mouth there, but it sounds to me, you mentioned the word holistic, so it sounds to me like you're more of a whole life nutritionist basically. So you eat healthy all the time, pre-event, post-event I'm guessing, and then actually when you're on the event it's more about kind of supplementing all the kind of foundation work which you put in before you even take your first step on these challenges.
Yeah, so I guess the approach on the challenges themselves change. I do now try and become more structured, that I know from experience that if you feed your machine, you can keep the power output high. So it's then trying to make sure that you're maximizing your stomach's tolerance and your body's tolerance to what load of carbohydrate you can consume, and trying to work out what things work without you getting the palate fatigue that you inevitably get in these duration. It's very different from running a 4-hour event or an 8-hour triathlon, where you can sustain a liquid fuel or a very specific tight regime. But when you extend it out to 24 hours or multi-days, you've got to try and find stuff that balances and mix it up. I guess the longer the event, I do try and make sure I still build in protein and macronutrients, and try and build in some whole foods, but it is still predominantly sugar focused energy that's quick. So I do thrive off a lot of Matthew gels and a variety of those sort of sweet products. Choose anything that mixes that quick sugar in.
Gives you the hit.
Gives me the hit. And early on, while my stomach's working, I was trying to eat every 20 minutes, probably getting up in the range of 80 to 90 grams of carbohydrate for the first 4-5 hours, which then probably tailored off towards more, perhaps 60 as a level for the rest of it.
Okay, interesting. Well, it obviously works.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's definitely weaknesses there for me in terms of how do I improve that as well. But it definitely works and helps to power the effort level that you want to put in.
Good. So you've done incredible things, right, compared to normal people. Are there any things that stand out from a highlight point of view? Is there any event that you can think, do you know what, when I was doing this at this point, that was just sublime? Is there anything that kind of resonates with you as something quite special, or are they all equally special?
Highlights. I mean, breaking the Lakeland 24-hour record last year was just mind-blowing, sort of special in the sense where it was in my career, because of the history of the record, and just that I didn't know or believe. It was one of those on the edge of, I stood on the start line and believed I could do it. I wouldn't have been there if I didn't think I could, but I didn't. It was didn't know type 1, and that's kind of why I do these challenges in the first place, is that I don't know. And actually to achieve that and it to happen was like a massive wow. And this Munro record was equally as hard. I mean, the time frame suggests the same, and the body suffering and the effort level I had put in was the same. So it's also a great achievement, and sits alongside that. But the first one is always the biggest and the most wow. Yeah. I've done that as a achievement. Another real highlight was that sticks in my mind was standing on the podium at the World Trail Championships in Annecy in 2015, and putting a bronze medal around our necks for a team prize. And I mean, I didn't have a perfect race there, but I had a good race, and I came 20th in the world in that race, and that was just a real wow. I'm running for Great Britain, and winning a medal as a team as part of that, and that was almost a dream as a kid that you don't expect until it happens.
Running for your country.
Running for your country. You watch the Olympics and the world cross countries, and then you're doing it in trail running. It was kind of a surreal moment.
So you mentioned briefly kind of the reason why you do it is because you're not too sure you can. So is that your primary driver? Is that your why? Is it all about the personal challenge for you?
Yeah, a lot of it is the personal challenge, that edge of what am I possible, what can I do, more than anything. And it's just trying to find where that line and boundary is, and always constantly pushing it. And that's often why I have failed in races and DNF'd, because I've over pushed or got it wrong, and have to accept that. Okay, that was red line and I crossed it this day, and then you learn from it and you park it and then move on and find new ways to find that challenge and that reward of that big smile at the end when you have succeeded and laid it all out there. And that's a pretty special feeling. It's not the only why. I think being out in nature and that journey element is really important to me. Hence, choosing the 24-hour Munro round as a venture, because it just really appealed to me. Remote Cairngorms, you look connecting all those mountaintops up, and you know it's going to be a pretty tough, wild experience. And there was a moment at the end on the last summit where the cloud just lifted, and there was two big stags, just sitting there at the top, like looking at us looking at them, and you just go, wow, this is, you know, one of those awe moments that you get so many times when you're running out in the mountains and on the trails. It's those, I think, what is it, another one I remember on the Arc of Attrition 100 down in Cornwall. I was running along and literally had to jump a badger as it ran across me in the middle of the night. It's those kind of interactions, or the magnificent sunsets or the sunrises, or the views across from Ben Macdui looking out, and it's just those moments that create a strong why for me as well.
So what would you say to somebody then? So if there was a 14-year-old budding runner watching this, thinking, oh, that sounds really good, what would you say to that young boy or girl starting their running career?
What would I say to them? Have fun. It's the most important thing. You've really got to enjoy it and develop it as a passion. I think also trying to accept that you're not always going to always get it right. So learn from it, move on, and that will help as well. Just that process of trying to grow, having that growth mindset, I think is a key thing as a 14-year-old. If you can keep that and that positivity going, you can always overcome hurdles and obstacles and keep improving, and then keep learning, exploring new routes to how do I get better, asking that question.
Right, jolly good. And do you have a mantra? Do you have something that you live by?
No, what I've used in the last couple of ones is every second counts, and I kind of that does equate to me as well. From probably another reason why I'm pushing and doing these things is because my old man passed away at 47 of a sudden cardiac arrest. So that holds firm in your mind that time is short and every second really does count. So and that carries on through into everything I do, really, to push and enjoy life.
That's fantastic, Kim. Thank you ever so much. It's been a real pleasure talking to you today. For those of you that enjoy this interview, please click like at the button down below and subscribe to Ultra TV's YouTube channel. Kim Collison, it's been an absolute pleasure. Are you jabbed?
Yes.
I'm double jabbed too. Thank you ever so much, sir. All the very best, and good luck at the Dragon's Back. I look forward to seeing you on the start line, because that's probably the only time I'm going to see you. So all the very best.
Thank you.
Take care.
Looking forward to it.
Goodbye. Thank you.